Hello and welcome or welcome back to Unwinding Minds. Today we're talking about relationships, specifically about some roles that we can slip into and how they can ruin our relationships, both with others and with ourselves. Karpman's drama triangle is more than theory. It's a pattern that quietly undermines trust and connection in relationships. We're exploring the triangle today and diving deeply into the ways that we behave and think when we're playing different roles that fall onto it. We're doing this in a more fun way today by doing an analysis of 3 different fictional characters who slip into these archetypes quite neatly. If you're excited to unpack this together with me, why not go ahead and hit that like button? It really does help to support the channel, and it also gives me an idea of the kind of videos that you most want to see. Okay, with all of that said, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to load you up on the theory and background, and then we'll break it down together. The drama triangle was introduced in 1968 by Dr. Stephen Karpman, a psychiatrist and student of transactional analysis. He developed the triangle when picking up on patterns and rhythms of behavior that people fell into, which created a cycle of repeating drama. Perhaps unsurprisingly, Karpman also had a background in storytelling and even studied how roles play out in theatre and film, which influenced the clarity of this model. I think it really shows. It draws on the skills that I think writers use to develop compelling characters. Over time, the drama triangle became a widely used tool in psychology, coaching, and relationship work. I think my favourite description of the drama triangle comes from the fabulous book Counselling for Toads. It's a book set in the same world of The Wind in the Willows. It's set after the main story and it follows Toad as he sets out to start counselling. I'd really recommend it to anyone. It's charming, it's warm, and it's whimsical. And it packs a punch too. By the way, if you do enjoy seeing psychological concepts explained in this way through storytelling, make sure to let me know in the comments section down below. I'm trying something a little bit new, a little bit different, add variety, and in an attempt to ensure that it's not dull. You can also subscribe if you don't want to miss future videos like this, as we are going to explore how to move out of the drama triangle in future videos as well. Really crucial. But anyway, back to Karpman's drama triangle. The patterns it describes emerge when conflict or stress push people into one of 3 roles: victim, rescuer, or persecutor. Each role offers a fleeting sense of control or significance, but collectively they trap us in a relentless cycle of dependency, blame, and power struggles as well. What starts as an effort to manage tension can quickly spiral into a destructive pattern that wounds our communication with others and deepens the rift in our relationships. And it isn't just poisoning the water of our relationships externally, it also poisons us internally as well, leaving us prone to not taking productive actions to improve our lives. It's worth pointing out, slipping into these behaviours that we'll be describing today is usually not conscious. We rarely make an active choice to be in a victim state, for example. They're behaviours that we formed over time to cocoon ourselves in a layer of protection of some kind, or to give us a sense of power or control or purpose. Let's break down these roles together now. I want to do this a little differently than I've seen before on YouTube, and I want to go past what it looks like into describing what it feels like as well. The types of thoughts or feelings that you might experience when you're slipping into one of these roles, because that's important to keep an eye on if you want to prevent it. Plus, I want to keep it interesting, as much for myself as for you, so we'll take some different characters into consideration from fiction as we explore the different roles. It will hopefully make it that much easier for you to recognize it if you're experiencing slipping into one of the roles, or if somebody else around you is. Big thing I've skipped over, you might find that you slip into different roles in different situations, like playing a different part in a play. So don't be too surprised if you hear about the 3 roles and can identify yourself, or the people around you, in more than one. To begin, we have the persecutor role. For the purposes of outlining how this role can look, let's take the example of Miranda Priestley from The Devil Wears Prada. Miranda is cold, cruel, critical, and controlling. She looks down on the people around her, and very few people in the film, or the book for that matter, seem to be able to get any of her respect. Throughout the film, she sees others as being beneath her, and says some downright mean-spirited things to the people around her. Notably, during the first film, there are a couple of moments where the mask gets pulled back a bit, and we can just see how hurt, tired, and vulnerable she is underneath her domineering behaviours. She's not immune to pain, and she holds herself to the same exacting standards that she applies to others. When she experiences a failure to continue holding to her own high standards, it leads her to be extremely vulnerable and hurt. Her response to the fear of being not enough is putting armour on and protecting herself, whilst also stepping on the people underneath her in order to feel more powerful, more in control, and more like the boss. The persecutor role is all about control, domination, and maintaining a sense of power through behaving in an intimidating way. The motivations of the persecutor may or may not be immediately clear. It could be as straightforward as exploiting and using another person. Or there might be some deeper, more troubling issues driving their actions, which we'll explore now. People who get stuck in the persecutor role may have formed this response as a result of harsh conditions when they were growing up. Many persecutors grew up around authority figures who used criticism, intimidation, or blame, and over time it becomes a default way of interacting with others too. People in these circumstances often, but don't always, hold themselves to the same exacting standards as others. Behaving as a persecutor can also stem from a fear of lack of control. They may feel a lack of control in other areas of their lives, leading them to assert dominance over others in an effort to establish a sense of safety or authority. Pain from past experiences can manifest as aggression or control in relationships, and sometimes this is very subconscious. It can also be driven by insecurity, fear, perfectionism, or even difficulty in expressing emotions healthily. Anger or frustration may come out as blame or intimidation because they haven't learned healthier ways to communicate their needs. So let's go back to Miranda Priestley's behaviour so that we can understand together how this role might look. Miranda wields her authority ruthlessly, dictating tasks and expectations with no regard for others' well-being. Her employees are constantly under pressure to meet impossible standards or deadlines. She is dominant, controlling, and blames and criticizes others publicly. She publicly criticizes, belittles, and humiliates her staff all throughout the film for perceived failures, reinforcing a culture of fear so that she can keep control over them. Other characters, like Emily Blunt's character, Emily, often behave very differently around Miranda. Emily spends the early part of the film being a persecutor to Andy, the main character, but is not so around Miranda. We can watch through their dynamic together how Miranda's cold, demanding demeanour keeps others in a submissive and reactive state, preventing them from challenging her or asserting their own needs. For example, Miranda's behaviour leads Emily to show up at a party when she's clearly too sick to be there, just so that she doesn't fall beneath Miranda's expectations, in an attempt to avoid punishment. And punishment is usually an important part of the persecutor role. By setting impossible standards and punishing minor mistakes, Miranda perpetuates stress and conflict in the people around her, often pushing others into victim or rescuer roles. The persecutor will frequently consider their actions as being necessary. They justify their actions as being necessary for excellence and success, disguising their intimidation as high standards, which is classic persecutor rationalization. Persecutors often feel that they're indispensable, that things would just fall apart without them there, and will grasp onto positions where they feel powerful because of this. We see Miranda do this towards the end of the film, when she prioritizes the stability of her own career over Nigel, another character in the film. Let's talk about some common persecutor thoughts. Remember, these are just examples that will hopefully help you to grasp the concept, and it may not always be as literal or as direct as these thoughts. If I don't do it perfectly, everything will fall apart. I should have anticipated this problem sooner. I'm irresponsible. They're incompetent. I'll have to fix this myself. They should know better, so it's their fault that this is happening, or that I have to behave this way. I can't show weakness. I need to stay strong so that others never catch me being vulnerable. If I don't push them hard enough, nothing will get done, so it's for their own good. They're too sensitive, so I have to toughen them up. I'm the only one who can handle this, because other people are too weak. These thoughts show that persecutors often believe their intimidating and controlling behaviour is justified, protective, or even necessary, even if it harms their relationships. By the way, if any of these thoughts hit close to home for you, go ahead and comment below, because I would love to hear which roles you might recognise in yourself or in someone that you know. Although, please respect the privacy of others if you do want to talk about someone else. Next, let's move on to exploring the victim role. For the purposes of understanding how this role can look, we're going to explore the character of Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. I can't think of two more radically different characters than Eeyore and Miranda Priestley. Eeyore is passive, pessimistic, and often feels helpless or unlucky. He tends to expect things to go wrong and assumes that others will let him down. Throughout the stories, he sees himself as powerless, and he frequently relies on others for support or for reassurance. Notably, there are moments where we see that Eeyore isn't completely without agency. He cares about his friends and sometimes takes small actions, empowering himself. But his default way of responding to situations is through resignation and self-pity. His sense of vulnerability and low confidence makes him dependent on others for support, and he often interprets setbacks as evidence that he is incapable or unworthy. The victim role is all about feeling powerless, trapped, or overwhelmed. Victims often struggle to take responsibility for their own needs or choices, and may wait for others to act on their behalf. The motivations of the victim may not always be immediately apparent. It could be as simple as feeling genuinely overwhelmed by their circumstances. Or there might be learned patterns of behaviour from past experiences influencing their state of inaction. People who get stuck in the victim role may have formed this response as a result of challenging conditions or circumstances when they were growing up. Many victims grew up in environments where their needs were overlooked, dismissed, or controlled, and over time they learned to rely on other people for protection or for validation. Behaving as a victim can also stem from low self-esteem or the fear of failure. They may feel powerless in other areas of their lives, which reinforces this sense of helplessness. Pain from past experiences manifests as passivity or withdrawal in relationships, and sometimes this is very much subconscious. It can also be driven by insecurity, fear of rejection, or difficulty in asserting their needs. They may retreat, complain, or defer decisions because they haven't learned healthier ways of advocating for themselves. Let's go back to Eeyore's behaviour so that we can understand this role even better. Eeyore consistently displays passivity and pessimism, expecting things to go wrong. He rarely initiates actions and often waits for others to step in and solve his problems for him. His demeanour is melancholic, and he frequently expresses self-doubt or a sense of inadequacy. Other characters like Pooh or Piglet often respond to him in ways that reflect his victim role, and they feel compelled to help or reassure him. We can watch through their interactions how Eeyore's resigned attitude keeps him dependent on others, often preventing him from taking initiative or from asserting his own needs. For example, when Eeyore loses his tail, he passively accepts the situation and relies entirely on his other friends to resolve it, rather than taking action himself. This dependency and passivity are classic hallmarks of the victim role. Victims frequently interpret circumstances through the lens of helplessness. They justify their passivity as being necessary for survival, or they believe that nothing they do will make a difference. Victims often feel that others must step in to help them, and they may gravitate towards situations or people that reinforce this dynamic, perpetuating the drama triangle. Let's talk about some common victim thoughts. Remember, these are just examples to help you grasp the concept. It may not always be as literal or direct as these thoughts, as I said before. Nothing ever goes right for me. I can't handle this on my own. I need someone else to fix it for me. It's not my fault. There's nothing I can do. Why does everything bad always happen to me? I'm too weak to change anything, so I just have to endure it. They'll never understand me or help me. I'm on my own. It's easier to complain than to try and solve it myself. These thoughts show that victims often feel powerless and rely on others to take action, even if it keeps them stuck. They may genuinely want to improve their circumstances, but the default mindset reinforces passivity, self-pity, and dependence, keeping them trapped in the drama triangle. Finally, let's talk about the rescuer archetype. To understand how this role can play out, we will explore the last character in this video, Joy, from Inside Out. I struggled for quite a while to identify a good example of the rescuer in film, because quite often on screen, the rescuer is washed of all negative aspects of rescuing behaviours. Joy embodies the rescuer archetype really effectively though, because her help throughout the bulk of the film is actually about controlling outcomes, maintaining her own sense of usefulness, and preventing the victim, that is, Riley in this case, from confronting reality and growing so that she can act independently of Joy's influence. While Joy's actions seem noble on the surface, her actions unintentionally enable dependency and stifle real emotional development, classic hallmarks of a rescuer on the drama triangle. People who get stuck in the rescuer role often develop this pattern as a response to being in environments where they felt very strongly that they were responsible for the well-being of others. Many rescuers grew up in households where caretaking was expected of them, or where neglect, instability, or emotional neediness made them feel compelled to step in. Sadly, I've seen this set of behaviours quite commonly in clients from abusive households, where neglect has taken place in particular, and they become the de facto parent at times of another sibling. Over time, rescuing behaviours can become a default way of interacting with others, even if it isn't needed or healthy. It can translate as being poorly boundaried at work or with loved ones. Behaving as a rescuer can also stem from a desire to avoid confronting one's own problems. By focusing on saving others, rescuers gain a sense of purpose and control. This pattern is often fueled by a need for validation or approval, or a fear that others will fail if left to their own devices, or a difficulty around setting boundaries and saying no. Sometimes it's all of the above. Commonly, these impulses are subconscious, and while the rescuer may believe they're acting out of concern or love, their interventions can unintentionally enable dependency, prevent growth, and reinforce unhealthy cycles. Let's dive deeper into Joy's behaviours throughout the film, so that we can understand this role a little bit better. Joy constantly tries to keep Riley happy by suppressing the character's sadness. thinking that she is saving Riley from negative feelings. In doing so, she denies Riley the chance to process her emotions naturally. Joy suppresses the other emotions and overrides the needs of those around her because she believes that her way of dealing with things is the best course of action. This action prevents Riley from being able to grow. By blocking sadness and the other feelings, Joy stops Riley from learning how to cope with disappointment, loss, and change, critical life skills that come from facing and integrating all of your emotions. When Riley moves away from her friends, Joy tries to suppress sadness, but this eventually stops being effective, and Riley then struggles to cope with the tidal wave of difficult feelings. Joy convinces herself throughout the course of the film, or at least the early part, that her interventions are necessary and heroic. But this is really masking her own fear of losing control over Riley's happiness. She gains a sense of purpose and validation through saving Riley from feeling sad. Joy's insistence that happiness is the ultimate goal keeps Riley dependent on her guidance rather than developing emotional autonomy. Autonomy is something that rescuers often try to prevent in the victim, though usually not consciously. A person who is autonomous, after all, does not need them to be in control. This approach to problem solving is often about avoiding deeper emotional pain. Instead of acknowledging that sadness is part of life, Joy's constant focus on positivity avoids the real challenge of integrating all her feelings, which is ultimately necessary for Riley's growth. Let's talk about some common thoughts someone might have when they've entered the rescuer frame of mind. It's as I said before, but I'll repeat myself again. These are just examples to help you grasp the concept. It may not always be as literal or direct as these thoughts. They're just to give you an idea. If I don't step in, they'll fail or get hurt. It's my responsibility to make sure they're okay. If I don't help, I'm a bad friend, partner, or parent. I can't let them struggle. I need to protect and help them. They need me to guide them. Otherwise, they'll make mistakes and get hurt. I'm only valuable if I'm helping someone else. I need to solve this so that everything will be okay. These thoughts show that rescuers often operate from concern, fear, or a need for validation, but the underlying effect can be enabling dependence, blocking growth, and reinforcing the drama triangle. So, there we have it. Those are the three roles of the drama triangle. Karpman was an intelligent man, to be sure. These archetypal responses are really not uncommon. I will say that they are also very unfavourable and unflattering about the human condition. You see, there are other ways of behaving in situations that can trigger these kinds of responses. The drama triangle describes dysfunctional ways of handling our emotions and our circumstances, but they are far from the only options that we have. In another video, we'll be discussing some of the ways that you can step out of these roles on the drama triangle into what's called the winner's triangle, so stay tuned for that one. In fact, don't forget you can subscribe and turn notifications on so that you can catch that future video. We'll walk you through the practical ways to step out of the triangle for good in that one. This video was long, so I am very grateful to you for spending this time with me today. Don't forget to like the video if you have enjoyed it or if you've learned something, or to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos like this. We cover many aspects of chronic illness, of disability, of neurodivergence, and of mental health on this channel, and we do upload quite regularly. I know this video follows a different format than others before it, and I do pay attention to the subjects that you show the most interest in, so comment down below if you have thoughts to offer about this one. If this video has resonated, perhaps share it with someone who you think could benefit from it. After all, sharing this video could also help someone else to spot these patterns in their own life too. And check the description if you are interested in working together with me on a one-to-one basis around the difficulties that I described in this video today, as I do offer private counselling. Thank you so much for watching, and take really good care.